Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Whistle Season 2. We're back at it with another year of doing this podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the NFL playoff scenario going into Week 18 and how the college football national championship is turning out to be. Alongside me, I've got Henry Lapin. I'm Rob Frangione, and we're going to be talking here with you guys about sports. So let's get right into it, starting with the NFL. So going into the AFC and NFC playoffs, you've got a ton of different scenarios that you can go. Henry, you got anything about most interesting ones to you?
Oh yeah, we know the Ravens have clinched the 1 seed, Chiefs with the 3 seed, and Browns have clinched the 5 seed. Dolphins have clinched a spot 2, but they can move up from anywhere to 2 to 5. So a lot of interesting games going into Week 18, especially the Bills and Dolphins game. Winner gets the AFC East and the 2 seed.
Yeah, the thing with the Dolphins-Bills game is that Miami has a lot of injury concerns. I mean, you saw Bradley Chubb. He's done for the year, that torn ACL from the Ravens game, where he shouldn't have been playing at all. They should have taken him out with 3 minutes left in the game, down that much. Tyreek Hill was seen in a walking boot. That could be from ankle injuries he's been going through all year. And you've got a ton of questionables with Waddle, who didn't practice on Wednesday, Devon Achane with a toe and rib injury, Raheem Mostert and Xavier Howard and Javon Holland. So 2 major pieces of that secondary might not be playing against the Bills. So maybe Stephon Diggs will finally have his first 100-yard game in 10 weeks or whatever it's been.
Yeah, the Bills can still make the playoffs even if they lose, but it's much more likely that if they lose, the Bills are out of the playoffs. If the Bills lose and the Jaguars and Steelers win, the Bills are eliminated. But the Bills are healthy going into Week 18 and coming off a nice win against the Patriots. Meanwhile, the Dolphins come in Week 18 with a lot of injuries and an embarrassing loss against the Ravens.
Yeah, that Bills scenario is most interesting to me. So the Jaguars and Steelers winning will knock out the Bills, which I just find immaculate. I mean, first of all, how are the Steelers even still alive? I mean, that defense, yeah, it's amazing, but the offense has been, really lackluster. I mean, yeah, Mason Rudolph came in and he really looked well for them, but I don't know how these dudes are still going.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, it just proves how good of a coach he is. I mean, you have no offense, and the only reason you're winning games is solely because of your defense. I mean, if you don't hold your opponent to less than 20 points, there's almost no chance you're winning a game, but that's just how the Steelers have been winning games all year, just all the props to their defense.
Yeah, so moving into the AFC South, we've got a lot of action going on there with the Jaguars, Colts, and Texans all having a chance at the 4 seed with the AFC South title, or even the 6th and 7th seed. And you've got a lot of stuff that could go down over there. And it's, first of all, Texans and the Colts are playing. I believe the winner of that should get into the playoffs. And if the Jaguars beat the Titans, then that should lock up the 4th seed for them, right?
Yeah, it would be a shame if the Texans didn't make the playoffs. They got unlucky with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, CJ Stroud, all missing some time. But when healthy, they're absolutely the best and most explosive team in the AFC South. And I think the Jaguars and Colts, if make the playoffs, are both first-round exit teams.
Yeah. Is Nico Collins playing this week? Or
Nico?
Yeah.
Nico Collins is healthy this week.
Okay, yeah, because Tank Dell had that fibula or whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, the Colts, honestly, I just don't think that would be a fun team to watch in the playoffs. And the Steelers, too. I mean, it's just 2 kind of bland teams. There's not a whole lot that sticks out about them, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So with the Steelers, we've got some scenarios if you want to go through them.
Yeah, Steelers can clinch the 7th seed with the Bills win or Texans and Colts tie or Jaguars loss. They can also get the 6th seed with the Bills loss and a Jaguars loss. And Steelers it's just an interesting season for them. They are at a single-digit point differential this year, and that's just not a winning formula for a team. So, like we said, that defense is the only thing keeping them in it, and they do have a solid chance to make the playoffs this year as a 7th or 6th seed.
Yeah, I mean, and firing your offensive coordinator midway through the season, well, usually it's not a good move. I mean, Matt Canada, I mean, I think that was a necessary change.
Yeah, it was.
And going back to that Bills-Dolphins game, the Bills actually beat – it was a beatdown, 48-20 in Week 4, but that was at home. So the Dolphins should have the home field. They will have the home field advantage this week.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to the NFC here. A little bit less chaotic, I'd say. You've got the 49ers locked in with the first-round bye at the 1 seed, and the Lions, Eagles, Cowboys, and Rams have all clinched. However, you still have the Buccaneers and Saints alive, and the Falcons are actually alive for the NFC South, and the Packers and Seahawks can still make some moves and go into the playoffs. So you got anything on that?
Yeah, Packers, it's winning in for them. Just a win against the Bears, and they clinch a playoff spot. Meanwhile, Seahawks need to win and a Packers loss to get into the playoffs. And Cowboys clinch the NFC East with a win over the Commanders. That'll land them in the 2 seed. Meanwhile, the Eagles need to beat the Giants and the Cowboys to lose versus the Commanders to win the NFC East.
Yeah, I just don't see any way the Eagles can move up to take the 2 seed. I mean, there is almost no chance that the Cowboys beat the Commanders. They've got, I think, the worst defense in the league. I mean, I don't know if I'm sure Dak will play, but he will pick them apart. It'll be a beat down, and the Cowboys are unfortunately going to take over the 2 seed, and they'll have that home field advantage for the majority of the playoffs.
Yeah, there still is a chance the Lions could take the 2 seed, but that would include a Lions win and a Cowboys and Eagles loss.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think the Eagles should lose to the Giants, even with the concerns they've had over the past 5 weeks going 1-4. There's just no chance they lose to them. Honestly, I mean, the Giants are awful. I know you're a Giants fan, and that might be a bit of a hard thing for you to handle, but they're just awful.
Yeah. And Rams versus Niners, just the battle of backups there. We have Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold, and the Rams will also be sitting Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Kyron Williams, a lot of their offensive and defensive stars. We can also expect no Christian McCaffrey for the Niners as he's still rehabbing from a calf injury, as well as probable no starts including Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle, as well as Teron Armstead on offense.
Don't forget they benched Brock Purdy, I think, going into that week too. So
yeah,
I mean, I think the Rams will actually be able to. I don't know. I'm hoping the Rams can move up and clinch that 6th seed because I really want to see a Rams and Lions rematch at Ford Field, where Stafford will finally go back to his stadium, which he spent so much time in. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go over my bracket, what I think is going to happen. I've got, Baltimore is the 1st seed. I think Buffalo's going to beat Miami and take over control of the AFC East. Kansas City in the 3 seed, obviously. And I think Jacksonville will remain in the 4th seed, where they will host Cleveland. And Miami will go to Kansas City as the 6th seed to play them. And I think Houston will beat Indianapolis and take over control of the 7th seed. And in the NFC, obviously, the 49ers in the 1st seed. Cowboys will beat the Commanders and take over the 2nd seed. Detroit in the 3rd seed, and I've got New Orleans. No, I don't think that's right. I've got Tampa Bay. I don't think we talked about that actually. The Tampa Bay. I think all they need to do is win, and they should have that. They should have that locked up. But what could happen is that they lose to the Panthers, which I just don't see happening. Bryce Young's going to get pummeled again, like as he has been all year. But what would need to happen for the Saints to get in? They beat the Falcons, which, I mean, that could actually go either way, and the Buccaneers lose, obviously. But the Saints could somehow still get into the 7th seed, but it's more likely for them to get in by winning their division than doing that. So I've got the Buccaneers as the 4th seed, and they'll take on, I believe it was the Eagles, when the Eagles should handle business just as they did 2 years ago in the wild card game. Like I said, Rams go to Detroit to have that rematch, and Green Bay versus Dallas, which has been a historical matchup in the past, 10, 15 years. So,
yeah, 2 of the oldest teams there you'd see in the 7th and 2 seed games, Green Bay and Dallas. But I completely agree with this list. I think in the AFC side, that Cleveland with Joe Flacco at quarterback can definitely make a long run into the playoffs, especially facing a pretty weak Jacksonville secondary in that projected playoff matchup, as well as Miami Chiefs should be a shootout. Same thing with Houston, Buffalo. And NFC, I think Philadelphia, no matter who they play, will beat any of the NFC South competitors. And I think the best game for the NFC side is absolutely Rams versus Detroit.
Absolutely, yeah, that'll be fun to watch. I feel like the Rams will definitely, if all of them are healthy, they should put up a fight against Detroit. Well, I'm certainly excited for Week 18, seeing how all the playoff scenarios shape out. But we should move on to the College Football National Championship. We witnessed 2 spectacular semifinal games in the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl between Michigan and Alabama, and then Texas and Washington. But now we've got Michigan versus Washington, and this is just such an enticing national championship game. I can't wait to watch this. What's your pick?
I think Michigan's going to win this, even though last time Michigan lost to Michael Penix, it was another shootout when Penix was at Indiana. I still think that Michigan's defense is going to hold strong, and I think J.J. McCarthy is going to have this passing attacking game back in stride, which we haven't seen in multiple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the last time Penix beat Michigan was just awful. It was that 2-4 COVID year in 2020. But that's really what shaped this team now. That's where they really started to shift on defense. But yeah, it'll be really interesting. Just for the record, we are both Michigan fans, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm go blue, baby. I'm taking Michigan to go all the way and beat Washington. However, they're going to need to do a lot of things to actually make that happen. And so some things I've got. The offense is definitely going to need to step up, as Washington will certainly be scoring points. But to note Washington's defense, they're relatively weak. They allowed 33 and 32 to Stanford and Cal, respectively. And I mean, really, they've narrowly won games that really should be blowouts. I saw some stats somewhere on, Washington's defense. They're ranked 53rd in scoring defense and 94th in total defense. Do you think that's going to be a big factor in the game?
Oh, yeah. Michigan's offense is definitely going to have to take some steps up. I mean, they just played a great Alabama defense, and I think that with the weaker secondary that Washington provides, I think Michigan, including, J.J. McCarthy at quarterback, Blake Corum is definitely going to have to step up, and I think you're going to have to look at Roman Wilson, the veteran receiver, to step up and get a lot of these. Michigan normally runs these play actions, these rollouts, somehow a lot of flea flickers, and I think those are all going to be targeted towards Roman Wilson this week.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'd love to see Colston Loveland get involved. I feel like he hasn't been as involved as he really should be this year. He's a phenomenal receiving option, and he's a great blocking tight end too. But yeah, I think Michigan needs to get more out of him. Do you think that Michigan's D-line can produce the same results, with those 5 sacks against Bama versus Washington on Monday?
I think they can. I mean, Michigan doesn't have by far the best athletes out of any Power 5 school at the defensive line position, but the way they can just scheme up blocks, they can just move guys around the line. They got big guys up the middle, stuff in the run. They got fast, strong guys on the edge, and I think just the defensive scheme that they bring out, I mean, they can provide pressure even with 3, 4, even 5 guys rushing the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and to note how good Washington's line is, they only gave up 11 sacks all year. And to your note, Bama gave up 5 in the Rose Bowl alone. So this will definitely be a harder task for Michigan's D-line. But what you need to do, they need to get to the quarterback fast. And while it's good to have a quarterback on the run, Penix is definitely someone who can make those plays while outside the pocket, as 41% of his completions were actually outside the pocket. And don't forget, he can take off running too, even with those 2 torn ACLs. He can definitely he's a threat on the run. And in the third quarter of the Rose Bowl, that's definitely something that Michigan struggled with. So they're going to need to watch out for Penix. They definitely should put a QB spy on him.
Yeah, Romeo Odunze is just going to be an X factor for this Washington offense.
Absolutely.
We saw Michigan's defense lock down a lot of the deep balls that Jalen Milroe threw their way during the Rose Bowl, but I mean, those were only 3 or 4 deep pass attempts, and we know Washington's going to be just trying those all game. Yeah. Romeo Odunze is just another level than Bond or any other receiver on that Alabama offense.
You can't forget about Jalen McMillan and Polk. They were both making huge plays in the Rose Bowl. They've been making plays like that all season, actually. Yeah. And, I mean, obviously, Penix, he's not afraid to let that thing fly. He's got insane accuracy. I would love to see the Patriots take him this year, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So they just need to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They got to keep using that, and obviously Will Johnson, Mikey Sainristil, and you've got Makari Page back there. They're going to be a lot more locked down than Texas's secondary, but I mean they're not going to let everything up. So
an area of concern for me for this Michigan is special teams.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was absolutely horrendous last game in the Rose Bowl, and I mean just missed snaps from the long snapping position, bad punts, bad punt returns. I mean, we saw a couple that just shouldn't even have been caught, should just let those bounce into the end zone, that were caught, fumbled, and just barely not a safety, recovered at the 1-yard line. We also saw that punt return at the beginning of the game that just gave Alabama an extra possession, as that was muffed as well.
I mean, that was basically 11 points they gave up with, to your point, that punt return at the beginning of the game, where that gave Bama the ball in prime field position. I believe that was around the 40-yard line. So, I mean, Samaj Morgan and obviously Jake Thaw, who we saw almost sell the game at the end, but I mean, to his to be fair, he did get the ball in at the 1 yard line. So I mean, he saved the game at one point. Mm-hmm. But they need to do a better job during practice this week of actually securing the ball, not making any mistakes, and obviously to the other points. Missed the field goal to go into the half, I believe, and they missed an extra point. So that's about 11 points that they gave up. So all they need to do your job. Basically, that's all they need to do. Do your job, and this should be a coaster win for Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan's defense just much better than Texas or really any defense that Washington has seen all year. And Michael Penix might be the only quarterback in the country that I would trust to still trust the deep ball against such a great defense. Michael Penix probably has the best accuracy in the country out of any prospect, possibly one of the best accuracies coming out of a recruit that we've seen in couple decades. I mean, he has 3 of the top receivers in the country, like we said, Romeo Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Polk are all elite, and we'll expect to hear their name called in springtime in the NFL draft. But yeah, Michael Penix, this is going to be a game that's won through the air for Washington and Michigan.
Yeah, and another point, Dylan Johnson, the Washington running back, he's expected to play in the national championship game, but if he does, how do you think that's going to influence the game?
I mean, we saw how Michigan's defense fared against the run last game. They were just streaky at best. I mean, they allowed a lot of bigger plays, especially from the quarterback position. But, Dylan Johnson, I think there's no way that he would miss this game. I mean, this is the biggest game that any college player could play, especially with all the hype going around this game, two really explosive teams. I think that there's no injury that could take him out of this game. So I think he's going to be healthy in the mind. I think he's just going to be explosive, and I think there's no way that he won't play.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think the Michigan defensive line could possibly take advantage of the injury. I mean, he'll probably be slower. Don't know if he's going to be able to make the cuts that he's usually able to make. So, I mean, obviously, I'd expect a bit of a 2-man running back package out there, rotating between their backup. It'll certainly be that could be the decider in the game if they're actually able to run the ball or not. Going back to Washington's defense with the 53rd in scoring defense and 94th in total defense, that would be the worst stats on defense to ever win the national championship, even going back to the BCS era. But I said that if they can get a turnover, that really could be the difference of the game. That's how we saw it in the Sugar Bowl. They were able to force a fumble on Texas twice, and I believe those possessions was why they won that game and are here in the first place.
Yeah, Michigan, while normally they're really secure with the ball, we saw J.J. McCarthy, I believe on the first play from scrimmage of the game, he tried to throw a ball away that ended up in the hands of an Alabama defender. Luckily, it was called back as the defender stepped out of bounds and didn't reestablish himself inbounds. But, Michigan, they're going to have to be secure with the ball. That offense we know is going to go through Blake Corum, but they're also going to have to deeply trust J.J. McCarthy, the veteran, the new, I think it was top passing leader at Michigan, just past Tom Brady, to win that game through the air for them.
I mean, he's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks over the entire season. I think he has a 73.5 completion percentage, which is, I mean, that's just incredible. You don't see that at a whole lot of guys at any level. So if he can continue to do the same thing, not turn the ball over, and keep the Washington offense off the field, that would be their best way of going to the into the game.
Yeah, Washington, their offense as well relies on their kicker Gross to score a couple field goals. We saw him during the Sugar Bowl making some clutch kicks, and we saw Michigan. They were letting Alabama get downfield, but for the most part, they did hold up in the red zone and further back. I mean, Alabama's kicker is just on a different level. We'll see if Gross for Washington can live up to that, and that'll just definitely be a huge extra factor for Washington and Michigan in this game.
All right, yeah, so we're both going with Michigan to win this one?
Yeah.
All right, so one last question. Which fan base and which program do you think a win in this game would be more important for? I mean, Michigan hasn't won since 97, and Washington hasn't won since 91, so both huge, almost 30 years of not winning this game for both teams. So.
I'm going with Michigan, of course. I mean, fan base has been teased for the past couple of years, just dominating these bad teams in the regular season and just losing in heartbreaking fashion. I think it was the Fiesta Bowl last year to TCU. That was just a absolute heartbreaking shootout. I think Michigan definitely needs this more. There's been so much hype. There's been so much drama this year, especially around Harbaugh and the scandals. They just got to beat. They just got to beat a real good team, which we saw they could do last week and earlier in the season against Ohio State and Penn State. But Washington is just on another level compared to anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan, they've been through so much in the past really 10 years. I mean, going back to that Ohio State scoring drought, they beat them, twice in 20 years, I think. And then 2021, obviously, that Aiden Hutchinson-led team, they finally snapped that drought. But, yeah, going into this, I mean, this is a program that has been made fun of, ridiculed for not being able to win or in big games, especially the Peach Bowl in 2021 against Georgia. Sorry, the Orange Bowl in 2021 against Georgia, and last year in the Fiesta Bowl against TCU. So, I mean, Washington, they're really, as good as they've been, I feel like no one really expected them to make it this far. I mean, going into the Pac-12 championship, a lot of people expected Oregon to win that game, but Washington came away. They were able to handle them all, fend them off, and secure that 2 seed. So I think, Michigan really just to be that blue blood team that they have been considered to be over the past so many years. I mean, they've got 1,000 wins that they just got this season. They really need this win. That's what they need to do. That's what they need to focus on. Mm-hmm. All right, that's all we got for this week. We'll see you later with our playoff preview for the NFL season once all those matches are finally set. And we will hopefully give you a rundown of what happened in the national championship. Hopefully Michigan comes out on top. But that's all we've got for Beyond the Whistle Season 2, Episode 1. So we'll see you guys in a later episode. Thank you so much.